Fidel Castro, the Cuban dictator who ruled the island nation since 1959, died yesterday in Cuba. His brother Raul, the hereditary dictator, made the announcement on state run television last night. Now, we're seeing the normal obituaries out there. He's being praised in Cuba, he's being praised in other communist nations, he's being basically demonized here in the United States. I want to break down here the basic real history of Fidel Castro because hindsight is 2020, and this guy has been around politically for more than 60 years. Much of it's been declassified. Fidel admitted to a lot of it, so we really have a clear picture of who Fidel Castro really was. Number one, he was a larger-than-life legendary figure, very strong male figure, a great military tactician, a very strong leader. Definitely the stuff of living legend. He's now passed into legend. That said, he was a horrible communist dictator who conservatively killed several 100,000 of his own people and imprisoned several million and tortured several million. That's incontrovertible. But what you're not going to hear about on the news today is admitted fact if you just go look it up in any military annals or historical annals. Starting in the mid-1950s, the CIA wanted to put pressure on the Batista government to go along with Western directives, so they began funding the movement of Fidel Castro as a rebel movement. Castro kind of flipped and became a communist, and so by 1960 or so, by the time he got into power, he was the biggest enemy we had. But he had been called by Eisenhower in the mid-1950s the Abraham Lincoln of the Caribbean. So again, that's stuff you're not going to hear on the news, but it's a fact. It's in mainline history books that he was funded by the CIA. So was Ho Chi Minh by the predecessor, the OSS, during World War II, but that ended up blowing back. So really, Fidel Castro, if you want to say anything, was a giant CIA blowback on the West, and Cuba that makes Miami even today pale in significance with the hotels and casinos and entertainment, was the jewel of the Caribbean, and now is a trashed mess. So he is giant blowback. He's also one more tombstone over a civilization to show us how communism doesn't work, how it creates nightmare systems. Look at China, look at the Soviet Union. Anybody who really practices it kills tens of millions of people, like the communist Chinese did. They started leaving communism, going to just pure fascism. Look at Venezuela collapsing today under communism. First, they denied they were communists for 15, 20 years, almost 20 years, and now they admit they're communists, and they can't even keep the lights on for more than a couple hours a day, even though they have giant supplies of coal, oil, you name it. So again, just like North Korea or any of these other countries that go communist, they do not deliver anything but hell on earth and hereditary dictators. You have the hereditary dictator in the 1940s through the 50s, Kim Jong-il's father. Then he has Kim Jong-un, a stunted, insane, megalomaniac demon who thinks Dennis Rodman's cool. Hereditary dictatorship. Now we've got Raul Castro. And the word is they're going to pass it on to family. And there won't be a word from any of the communists on the street, no one, about why is it hereditary? It's dictatorship. I'm expecting the North Korean leadership to start wearing crowns or something, or ceremonial headdresses. Communism is slavery. It's got a bunch of fancy political maxims and systems. Some of it's true about how economics works, but their solutions are a fraud and always delivers vertically integrated central systems of control. That's why Carol Quigley wrote a book in the mid-1960s called Tragedy and Hope that was not meant for public distribution, that we have available at Infowars.com, that's been reprinted, where he's explaining to the CIA and the State Department that, look, you're confused. You ask, why do we fund communists? Why do we fund fascists? Why do we fund dictators? We want central control. All the other political machinations don't work. We want central control, and we want to move to that in the U.S. by having a Democratic and Republican Party that fight with each other on the surface, but basically are following the same agenda. The book, by the way, is free online, too. You can find it. I mean, it's all been written by them, how it operates. People keep asking how I know the future, or how I keep predicting what's going to happen, or, oh, my God, I must be in the CIA or something. It's all public. That's what's so frustrating. So Castro's gone. What a character, wearing 2 Rolexes on his arm so he can have Moscow time and Cuba time. Very interesting individual. When Che Guevara, who was super racist and thought that natives thought that the Indian tribes, as they were called at that time, Mesoamericans and others, were subhuman trash. He was super racist. Fidel didn't like that and actually banished him out of the country, and he got killed. So compared to Che Guevara, he was a romantic who actually meant well, but still could never deliver. So out of all the communist nightmares out there, leave it to the Cuban people, hard-working, smart folks, that under that they still maintain some semblance of a society, of a country. So it is the least worst example of a communist country ever. It only killed a couple 100,000 people and decimated the nation and absolutely destroyed their fields, not rotating them enough, and just they can't produce cars. They can't. Every other person's a nurse or a doctor, but there's no machinery. They cannot produce because it's always top down. It's always centralized. It's always about who you know instead of who you are and what you stand for. This is the nature of political correctness. So here's my little diatribe on Fidel Castro. I'm glad to see Cuba is getting opened back up because that's one way to reform communism. The problem is we're moving to a crony capitalist system that couples with communism. About 6 months ago, President Obama was in Argentina, remember? And he said, oh, listen, communism and capitalism work together. China's the model. We need capitalism globally, but nations to be communist. That means you get 30 cents an hour, you're a slave working 16 hours a day at a Foxconn lab, you're under communism, but then the big multinationals, they get all the iPhones and all the goods, and then they get to fly around on jumbo jets with their mistresses on the Google airplanes and stuff, see? So, oh, no, we're capitalists, we get airplanes and we get air conditioning and we get cars. You don't, you get communism. And that's why they've had multiple Chinese presidents who were appointed by the Central Committee and the Politburo come out and say, under our communist system, we have achieved pure capitalism. And this is the weird David Rockefeller plan. He's written articles for the New York Times. You can pull them up online, praising Mao Zedong, praising how they're merging communism and capitalism. But that's not. When you merge those two, it's pure fascism, which is what fascism always was. And then all these people that go to college, they'll comment and go, fascism and communism are different, dumbass, redneck, effer from Texas, you can't even, whatever. Here, I'll do it with an English accent. You have to understand that I've read dozens and dozens of textbooks written by the elites themselves admitting that the true system is corporatism or fascism and that communism was deployed by British intelligence to bring down Russia and other areas to get serfs that were demanding emancipation from feudalist systems under the czars, and others could then be put into a new political system of even greater slavery and control, believing they were being empowered the entire time. Now, this is actually written by the governing classes. So, before you tell me that I am not an intellectual because I'm from Texas and we only ride horses and are still in the Stone Age, it would be important for you to understand my success in the media, in systems, now being bigger than the BBC and the New York Times combined according to Quantcast and other major rating services. I know you've been taught in your pseudo-intellectual system to just dismiss any real intellectual or historical information and foppishly declare yourself an incredible intellect. But this is the suboid synthetic systems that are actually frauds. If you wish to diverge from your current system of mind control and be successful, then you will actually follow what I say, research the information, and open yourselves up into a greater world. There, does that please you better if I speak like that for you? How about maybe a New York accent would be better for you, or Atlantic accent, or continental, quite continental? How would you like me to speak to you so that you can understand history and how these forces work? You do not want centralization. You want free market. Even 5% free market will outperform everything around it because of choice. Everyone will go to it. That's the thousands of choices. That's all the different electronics and medical equipment and systems and art and literature and culture you have. The only problem is it produces such a giant, huge amount of surplus and such largesse that if we don't stay on our kids and they don't stay on theirs, we become decadent scum who inherited the empire of ideas that our forebears fought to carve out and give us. So, it is the Republic. It is the New Atlantis. It is the vision of absolute, total, transcendent geniuses if you will take it in your hands and if you're good enough to see it and accept it and pull the sword Excalibur from the stone. You going to read what Francis Bacon wrote? You're going to go read what George Washington said and Thomas Jefferson? Do you have any idea? They are the ones that envisioned all the science, all the technology, everything. 300, 400 years ago that we would go to the stars, that we would discover how everything worked. They're the ones that discovered the planets were round and that we orbited the sun, and thousands of inventions by just that current set of founding fathers, over 500 by Benjamin Franklin, including channeling electricity. And then you sit there pissing on them when they gave you the stairway to heaven, the stairway to Elysium, because they believed in you. They thought you were special instead of scum like the royalties thought. They saw King George III all inbred, mentally ill, and delusional, people wiping his ass. And they wrote letters saying, we're not going to have leaders where we wipe their ass. They could all speak 4 or 5 languages. If you were rude to them, they'd take you out in the street and kill you in a sword fight. They were badasses. And that's why the globalists piss on them all day. They launched a real revolution in 1776 that was building for hundreds of years. The true explosion of the Renaissance. The enemy then launched a counterfeit the same year in Europe and then launched their fake revolution a few years later, which was all about enslavement and death. The enemy is hijacking our true revolution. And let me explain something to you. People say, oh my God, Alex Jones is a member of the Illuminati. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the head of the Illuminati. Have you figured that out yet? The head of the damn thing. But I wasn't brought up in that. It's only an idea. There's the false Illuminati, that's the globalist and their New World Order and darkness and Satanism and all this crap. To sit there and say I'm the head of the Illuminati means only I'm the head of wanting light, wanting freedom, wanting people to love God, love Jesus Christ, wanting to build a better world and help the sick and build others up and not use those below me. You could become the head of the Illuminati. If Donald Trump actually delivers on half of what he says he'll do, he'll be the head of the Illuminati. But quite frankly, right now, I'm the #1 person worldwide they call the #1 conspiracy theorist in the world. What does that mean? I question the mainline doctrine. I question the mainline garbage. I expose it. I'm a heretic to their frauds. Okay? They're the counterfeit. They're the Jacobins. They're the French Revolution. They're the fraud. They're not the real Atlantis, ladies and gentlemen, that real Christians dreamed of and really wanted to set up and were willing to come here and die in massive numbers to try to build to get away from tyranny. And of course tyranny followed them. And of course it was still there. But it was an idea that was true that God saw. Again, the devil masquerades as an angel of light, the Illuminati. I don't say that I'm the head of the Illuminati to be arrogant. There's no secret meetings. It's all a bunch of crap. I just use that as a term because they're the counterfeit. The stupid movies with, making hundreds of millions of dollars about Illuminati this and, and the new movie with, that moron Tom Hanks sitting there where, there's a government plan to sterilize everybody. They're just revelation of the method telling you through their counterfeit Illuminati what they're doing to you. See right through them. And they're such a frickin' joke. And again, this isn't meant for the profane. This isn't meant for people that don't have the depth of understanding. They'll just say, oh my God, Alex admits he's the Illuminati. It's a figure of speech. You, if you're for true light, aren't the Illuminati. That's a term they use. It just means you want freedom. That's all it means. You want to be awake. You want light instead of darkness. But who masquerades as the angel of light? God's the real light. You see, it's just so crazy. I'll sit there and tell them, hey, those graphics we use on a movie where it shows the pyramid and then it burns up, put that as an intro. And I walk in and I go, you just did an intro where the pyramid doesn't burn up. They're going to now say I'm pushing pyramids, But then I realize it doesn't matter. The weak-minded are always just going to want to accuse me of being bad because they're spiritually bad and just want to give in to not making the world better. They just want to never recognize good when it's actually arriving. They don't want to actually take the world over and make it better. They want to just lose and denounce everything as bad. It's like if I say, if the University of Texas makes the sign of the devil, they don't mean that. It means hook 'em horns. But when other people do it, it is the sign of the devil. But really before that, it's the sign of a curse. People don't even know where any of this comes from. And that's what I think. People have to get real knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, and not listen to all the people spewing disinformation, but actually do your own historical research. An example of this is natural law. There's a lot of kooks involved in natural law, but natural law is truth if you go and research that. But then even that can go to too extreme of an end because we still have these innate systems in us for balance and operation on this planet. But look, I don't mean to get too esoteric here. All I'm trying to do is expose the hidden. So there is no more occult. There is no more lies. There is only truth. Sure, there'll always be some lies, but it'll be so evident they're lies because the people would have been raised up to see things openly for themselves and not shuddered through all these preconceived notions. Fidel Castro, CIA operative, minion of the globalist, lowest scorecard for communist kills. Still a horrible person who did export major terror to Africa and other areas. So actually, if you add that together, maybe. Yeah, other communists killed so many. I mean, gosh, Mao Zedong, 80 plus million, all those others. He's. I think it's accurate to say, because Venezuela's killed so many people, they just keep it quiet. Maybe he's the number 2 lowest level killer. Maybe it's Venezuela, but listen, I digress. We shot this video. I'm going to upload it right now and talk about Fidel Castro, and I'm going to shoot one more video live as well today. Infowars.com/show. Stay with us. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You gonna sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you gonna be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.